Morning, y'all. So I hope everybody had fun in the live stream last night. Now, don't forget, if you were a prize winner, you need to email me a mailing address by Friday so I can get everything mailed out. My email address is in the comments or in the description on this video and pretty much every one of them. So make sure you use the Proton mail address, not the old Gmail one. The Gmail one hasn't worked in months. So on another note, I wanted to ask everyone for prayers for Heather over at the Needy Homesteader. I found out yesterday her husband was killed by a drunk driver after a family Valentine's Day date night. Heather's still in a hospital with 4 broken limbs and a multitude of other injuries. I linked her video on the community page if any of you are not familiar with her channel, but just keep her in your prayers. Obviously, tough time for the family. So this morning I wanted to talk about the chaos that is in our economy again, and some of the things that are going to affect us as preppers in the very near future, especially in our wallets, okay? And this is just coming out, so. Now, we all know about the campaign promises of student loan forgiveness and the pipe dreams that were put out about forgiving $50,000 of loans to each borrower, okay? Now remember, there's about $1.6 trillion in student loan debt out there. So it's quite a bit of money, but $1.6 trillion, remember that number. Now the occupier of the White House has said that he's not on board with forgiving $50,000 of debt, but more like $10,000. Okay. Even then, somehow this money has to get paid back to the lenders. Okay. Where's it going to come from? Taxes, of course. Your wallet. But that's not the big thing I want to talk about, okay? My concern is the Emergency Rental Assistance Act. Now, I talked about the homeless crisis we face as a country a few days ago, but this solution is insane, all right? According to MSN, Microsoft Network, okay, another bastion of liberal propaganda media, the $25 billion that the Emergency Rental Assistance Act provided by Congress in the Emergency Coronavirus Relief Act last year was a good down payment, but not nearly enough. That's what they're saying, okay? MSN is urging Congress to swiftly pass the American Rescue Plan to deliver an additional $25 billion in economic recovery, including $5 billion towards 70,000 emergency vouchers and $5 billion to support let's try that again, $5 billion to support people experiencing homelessness, okay? Now, I'm all for helping people in a time of need. Y'all know that. But this is insane, okay? We've already provided, in other words, magically created, $25 billion. And now the media is clamoring for Congress to borrow another $25 billion to pay the back rent of all the people in arrears. So let me ask you this. Is that $50 billion well spent of your tax dollars? Now, how many of you know people who are behind on their rent, yet they're still smoking, still drinking, still playing video games, hell, even still working, okay? A couple of you guys told me stories about tenants you had who weren't paying rent but managed to buy a new car, and another story said managed to buy a new washer and dryer. Okay, new car. Okay, even if it's on payments, new car now $600-700 in payments, washer and dryer $1,200. Okay, that pretty much covers rent. This is what drives me nuts. Now, y'all know I've been homeless in my life, and I dug myself out with some charitable help of less than $1,000, okay? I got into a very cheap apartment. I found furnishings for free on Craigslist and the like. I took whatever job I could find. I never collected food stamps or welfare or anything like that, but every penny I had went to keeping a roof over my head. And this was 2010. I'd just gone through a divorce and a subsequent bankruptcy at the same time of losing my job due to the Great Recession, okay? Now, this isn't meant to be a pity party or pat myself on the back for getting back on my feet, but come on. You have to make good decisions in bad situations. Now, my question is this. Just like the guy who asked Elizabeth Warren if he was going to get all the money he spent on his daughter's education back, which of course she answered with a firm no. What about the millions of people who were responsible and had an emergency fund in case they lost a job or experienced some other financial setback? That's something I learned I needed 10 years ago, about the same time I started prepping, okay? And I think pretty much everybody in the country learned it 10 years ago, okay? Now, I started prepping back then, albeit on a much smaller scale than I do now, but I still started. It was like eyes open, okay? What about the people who did pay their rent? How is this fair to them? Again, they probably had their hours cut or they lost their jobs. They had to use their savings or cash out some of their retirement to make ends meet. What about them? Why do they have to go without while the irresponsible get rewarded? Let me ask you this. Most everyone received the stimulus checks of $1,200 a person last spring. And again, $600 again in January. Now, I highly doubt anyone living in a rental unit who's behind in their rent exceeded the income threshold. So I'm pretty much guessing they all got these checks. Then if they lost their job, they were eligible not only for unemployment, but the extra $600 a week in federal benefits that we got last year, and the $300 a week in federal benefits that you're currently getting if you're on unemployment. Okay? Where did that money go? I mean, how many stories did we all hear about people not wanting to go back to work because they were getting more on unemployment than they were by working? If you're making more on unemployment than you are working, how the hell can't you pay your rent? Okay. Now, I understand unemployment payments were severely delayed, but it's been a year now. Okay. By now, people should have been receiving their back unemployment. Why wasn't it given to the landlord? Now, I went through and looked at this. Mississippi has the lowest unemployment payment of the 50 states, maxing out at $235 a week. All right. Most states had a limit of 26 weeks on unemployment for COVID. So that would have been, in Mississippi, $6,110 received, not including any federal benefits, which would have added up to $7,800 because you get the $600 on top of your $235. That would have totaled $7,800 last summer, plus $1,800 in stimulus checks, plus $3,900 that's being paid in extra federal benefits now. That totals $19,610 in Mississippi for the last year. Granted, you're not living high off the hog, okay? You know, it's still basically poverty level. But if the average renter is behind $8,400 and you got $19,610, okay, where the hell did the other, you could have paid your rent and still had $11,000. Where'd the money go? Okay. You know, so now MSN is lobbying for another $25 billion to reward bad behavior. Come on. Who gets to pay for this? All of us. Higher taxes, more likely, and inflation. Now, raising taxes right now is probably not a good idea if a politician wants to get reelected. So they'll let the open market take care of it with inflation. So congratulations. You paid your bills, and now you get to pay your neighbor's bills too. Ain't communism great? Okay. So then we get to the open markets as a whole. Okay. I've mentioned many times to watch the 10-year note. It's up around a 1.5% yield. I've told you guys many times 2% is the linchpin to collapse. And yesterday I was reading stories that economists are now saying 1.75% is where all hell breaks loose. We're at 1.5. That's how close we are, guys. Okay. 25 basis points. All right. Then, to top it off even more, you know, interest rates are low, right? Everybody's like, oh, cool, you know, I can borrow money cheap. Well, the banks aren't that interested in loaning out money, especially on homes, okay? Even though we hear all these stories about home construction or whatever, you know, the days of I've got mediocre credit and getting a home, those are gone, okay? Why? You know, mortgage rates are down at 3.2% for a 30-year loan and 2.3% on a 15-year mortgage. You know, think about it. Banks want to make money. They're a business after all. I get it, okay? On a $100,000 loan, and I know, but I'm just trying to make the math easy, okay? A bank would collect $2,300 to $3,200 a year at the beginning of the loan. And obviously that goes down over time as you're paying off principal. Okay. The banks know what's on the horizon. They know the economy is teetering on collapse. The banks don't want to be in 2008, 2009 all over again. Remember all the foreclosures they had back then. Banks aren't a real estate industry. Okay. They loaned out $200,000 in a house. The economy collapsed. They sold it for $120,000 and they ate the $80,000 loss. Millions of times. They don't want to remember 7 million houses were foreclosed upon in the Great Recession. Okay. The banks aren't interested in taking all that risk for very little money. Okay. That's why they're so tight on loaning money right now. And of course, that causes yet another problem. Our economy needs debt in order to grow. That's what's happened to our country. Okay. As a lot of people said, that little dollar bill, that's not currency. That's basically a debt instrument. Okay. Right now, you're actually penalized for not having debt. Think about it. If you paid off your house, paid off your car, paid off your credit cards, your credit score actually goes down, okay, because you don't have any credit history. Well, you got credit history, but it's all paid off, okay? That should tell you everything you need to know about how crazy this economic bubble we're in is. Face it, guys, we're all trying to be responsible, us, preppers, by being self-sufficient, by being out of debt, by being not reliant on anyone, especially the government. And all we're getting for it is we get the bill for the guy next door who just bought the new truck and the big screen TV. Now when, not if, but when this all comes crashing down, you better be ready. Cash in the house for as long as it's worth something, okay, and silver or gold, whatever you want to buy, in the safe, because that's how you're going to survive and thrive, okay? The rest of these knuckleheads are going to be looking for handouts again from a government that will no longer exist, and what piecemeal is left of them is going to be dead broke. I mean, great, if money's worth nothing, what are you going to print up, okay? And all these people are going to wonder what to do then, all right? Like Margaret Thatcher said 30 years ago, 40 years ago, okay, the problem with communism is eventually you run out of other people's money, okay? This is where we're heading, guys. If MSN, the Microsoft network, wants this so badly, let Bill Gates pay for it all. Hell, he owns Microsoft, right? After all, I bet he's got $25 billion sitting in the kindling rack as we speak. But funny how I haven't heard any offer from him to help. Pinball out.